Signed up. Item number 3, workshop. Review of the discussion on planning and development and the goals of the director of environment and neighborhood services.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to run through the presentation. It's pretty brief, a few slides to cover regulatory history, how we enforce it, what are some of the things we see and get asked, and then move into Nicole and I and our are available for questions and discussion and any direction the council would provide this evening. So we'll start with the development code. In its current way it is today, is adopted in 1997. So back then, we still used the SIC land use classification system, which had a use category for tobacco stands. That's how it was called. It's 80s kind of general category. Then in 2019, when we moved to a more modern land use classification system, this is how it's now classified. Tobacco hookah made for retail store. Shop specializing in sale of tobacco, cigars, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, vape, hookah, other tobacco products. It is permitted by right in the B2 zoning district. That's how it's always been permitted, even back with the SIC code in the general business zoning district. In the code ordinances. So the smoking ordinance portion was adopted in 2007. Per the code, smoking is allowed in these following areas. Bars that were in operation before the 2007 date, that was like Town Square, really. Tobacco bars, retail tobacco stores, and country clubs. And then it very clearly says that smoking is not permitted inside restaurants where food is prepared and served. And then when you can smoke, there are distance requirements. So the code of ordinances says you cannot be within 25 feet of a primary entrance or exit. So that's kind of your main doorway into the facility. A wheelchair ramp or an operable window that could all the way open and become kind of that door. And then it's also prohibited within 5 feet of an entrance to your outdoor seating area. So you couldn't be kind of standing next to that door that leads back into the restaurant. You have to be at least 5 feet away. So recently in the last few years, we have experienced a real increase in inquiries on having a hookah lounge and a food establishment. A lot of those have been requests for maybe opening a restaurant that you can smoke in, or a bar that you can smoke hookah in. And that's really provided us with an opportunity to examine the way sort of our current regulations and to educate our businesses and our public and our residents on what the regulations are. So based on that, we went ahead and kind of prepared some guidelines on some various scenarios that we commonly receive and how you can operate in the city. And so I will run through those on this slide. So there's 3 different bullets here. So you can be a food establishment that allows hookah, cigar, tobacco. So that's a restaurant where you are operating as a restaurant, and then you can smoke any of those products on the exterior patio. So again, not in the restaurant, that's clear, But the smoking can be on the exterior patio when it meets those distance requirements that we looked at on the previous slide. The restaurant, the food establishment can sell the tobacco products. They don't have to, but they can, and then take them outside to consume on the exterior patio. And the second option is a hookah, cigar, or tobacco lounge. So this would be an establishment where there's no operations on site that require a food or food handler's permit. So they're not storing food, they're not refrigerating it, they're not preparing it, they're not serving it, there's no ice machines, anything that would trigger the need for a food permit is not happening at that location. And then thirdly, operating the hookah, cigar, tobacco lounge and a food establishment, but they're in adjacent locations. So you have your smoking establishment, lounge, and you have your restaurant or food establishment, but there's no interior access between those businesses. There's also no food delivery from the food establishment into that, but customers can purchase at the food establishment and then carry it in and consume it themselves. So that's the kind of the separation where there's no interior access between those. And then finally, here's some of the some examples of our enforcement. So if it's smoking that's occurring at a restaurant or a food establishment that has a food permit or should have a food permit, it would be our food inspectors as part of our ENS team that would enforce. And so inspectors, as you know, are actively inspecting our restaurants and our food establishments, and so there's some active compliance checks that occur during those routine food inspections, and that's one way that there's some compliance checks. Another way is obviously we receive complaints from an establishment saying, you know, smoking is not occurring in the proper manner. Maybe someone's standing in front of the front door or they're outside or something, and we receive those complaints, and then the food inspectors will go out and investigate and pursue compliance. Miscellaneous smoking complaints, so that is if it's not a food establishment, there is no food permit, then our code enforcement inspectors will go out and investigate. And this could be if you're in a shopping center and an inline tenant calls and says, I can smell smoke or something, and code enforcement would go out and kind of see if there was any permeation into their business, just an example. And so those are some of examples of how we enforce some of the ways, when you look at this slide, that you can operate in the city. And so that was it. Very, very brief presentation so that we can move into Nicole and I'm happy to answer any questions and discussion.
Sure. Yeah. So I've got some notes. Let me just pull those up real quick. The guidelines that were established that you mentioned, when who established those guidelines?
So the staff wrote those up based on the inquiries we received. So those were kind of the options that we decided to kind of clearly lay out based on the smoking ordinance and how we regulate through the smoking ordinance. And so it was based on a lot of the inquiries we've received, and then it became kind of what we hoped was a clear way that we could lay it out for folks who call or inquire. You may have something to add to that.
A set of FAQs that we posted on our website to hand out for we get inquiries.
When was it? When did it?
I have to get back to you on an exact date of when we put it out.
Years? Within the last couple years. Within the last couple years. And those
Couple years, year or two. Yes.
Okay. And I just to clarify the code that's in place. Yes.
Yeah, because the standard industry code, the city code is changing. I think that's what.
So we moved away from using that. So right, it was always SIC, I think it's 5993. Yes, I know that. Tobacco stores and stands is what it was then, and that included cigars and cigarettes. But 80s, we were really talking a lot about e-cigs and vape, and so that wasn't part of that category. That's why when we moved in 2019 to modernize, we knew we had been receiving a lot of those inquiries. It was a common request. We were seeing it a lot in the area, and so we included it in the category because it was always about tobacco-based products.
So over the last 2 years, maybe 2021, something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do we have any hookah lounges or restaurant establishments in the city whatsoever right now?
We do. So we have cigar lounges.
Yeah.
We do have cigar
Okay,
lounges.
discussion.
Correct. We do have one, yes. Yes.
Where's that?
It's on Highway 6
Yes, it's on Highway 6,
and Settlers Way. No.
the 3500 block of Highway 6.
So we have the red, and then Mayor, second topic on this is also the vape. That's been part of the conditions in there, because we're allowing vape stores, I believe, now in our state. We've seen several pop up.
And they've always been allowed because they're tobacco sales. So we've just seen kind of a prevalence of them occurring lately, but we haven't changed our regulations on allowed.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's 3 smoke shops where you, or like lounges, where you can be a member. Is it 3 within the city?
That sounds right. That sounds right. Yes, there's
There's one over by Sam's.
Right?
Yes. There's one
across the
the
street.
street here.
And then I don't know where the third one is.
Well, the one in Sugar Creek.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's smoker.
The reason it's been and we're having this workshop is someone came to me about a month and a half ago and said, hey, I'm looking at a liquor shop in your city allowed it. I'm like, I didn't know anything about it because I know Jennifer May and I have had conversations, and I don't know if she's here or not, but we had conversations of potential businesses that wanted to do it, and it was said no, which is fine. I like that answer. I love that answer. And then I was shocked that staff had sent an email approving someone because I got that screenshot. And that was about 3 weeks ago when we were in Dallas together, and that's when I first brought it up. So I'm very concerned because if you go down Highway 6 and Highway 6 and Boss, that's what you see. You're on Boss all the way to Bel Air and Westheimer and all down Westheimer. Neon lights, open until 4 in the morning, doing all kinds of things that we as the city of Sugar Land, at least I know me as a member, I don't like these things in our city. And so that's why we're here, we're talking about it, but I know we're trailblazing, but this is over the bounds of trailblazing in my opinion, especially if we didn't have any liquor lounges like we do on Highway 6 and Boss or Stafford or Missouri City Code. That's all.
Yeah, right. What legally, if we, and I'm just saying, if we wanted to do that, what legally could we?
Could potentially look at revisiting, our zoning regulations. See if we would be allowed to change that as a use, which would require an ordinance and we would need to go to P&Z first. We would also need to we would be looking at just the smoking ordinance, whether we would potentially be impairing any vested rights, which we would need to.
So is the concern, what I'm hearing is that we could end up somewhat like the city of Houston, just a proliferation of hookah lounges. Okay, that's the concern. Where is the council on the issue?
Strong opinion on this.
Okay.
I don't like it at all. I'm battling with my children with vapes. The school district's put in a much stricter policy. If you bring a vape into school, they have to go to mandatory ARC for a certain number of days. It's a huge problem for school teachers. When we drive to school, I pass by 4 vape shops advertised on the shopping center. It's like a setup for failure for kids. And I think that if we allow this to flourish in Sugar Land, I think that's really going the wrong direction. So that's my blood pressure up, and because I think it's going in the wrong direction.
Okay.
Part of this conversation, I'd never heard the word hookah, and it required me to Google it. And so I don't smoke cigarettes, vape, or anything to begin with. So are hookah people rowdy? I mean, I'm missing. I don't get it. Are they more rowdy than cigar smokers or cigarettes? I don't know, because I don't have any idea what it is. I don't get sure I understand what it was. Yeah, so that my point is, if it's harmful to our community, I don't want anything to do with it. But is it more harmful than anything else that we're doing? Cigarettes or cigars or chewing tobacco? I have no idea. I wouldn't have even had an issue with it if I hadn't been here tonight. But
So is there,
No, no.
an age restriction on hookah like there is on cigarettes?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
It's considered tobacco, so it can fall under the 21 years.
Okay, so it's pretty.
so in the same way, because I'm not inviting hookah here, or whatever that means. Nor do I invite vape shops here. I don't think that that's a good image for our community. But it's a cigar bar more improved than
Yes.
So and by the way, to my cigar smoking friends, I got no issue with it. But if we're gonna say hookah, maybe it's a name, maybe change the name, which sounds weird. But maybe if we're gonna say hookah, no hookah, right? Then we need to be able to define why. And I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about hookah. So there you go.
I think the question we have here is not, well, for me, it's what they're smoking. And number two is that we have so many coming to us. I mean, we have 3 cigar bars, cigar lounges in Sugar Land, and that's been forever. You don't see them popping up everywhere. They're very small, they're very quiet, and there's a difference. When you go to a cigar bar, you smoke cigars, and you know what a cigar is. And it's not like you're going to have something else in that cigar. When vape shops come along, you don't know what you're smoking. When hookah, and I don't know for sure, how do you know what you're smoking when it's hookah? And I'm talking about our kids at this point. Adults should know what they're smoking. But cigars are cigars, are cigars, are cigars. Because you're not going to go to a cigar lounge and find somebody smoking a cigarette or weed or anything else. You're just not. And I know, because I go to them. But that's more of a quiet thing. So it's very different than any kind of other bar that you're comparing it to, say, vaping or hookah, as far as I know. So I don't see those growing in number in the city because it's, first of all, costly to have those cigar bars. And secondly, it's only a dense group of people that use them, small group of people. So I think it's very different than hookah. And I agree with everything Rashad and Jennifer said.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. I don't support the hookah or vape here.
Well, not in love with smoking of any sort, but it's not my job to tell anybody they can. If we're gonna allow cigar bars, we should allow hookah bars. But my question for Shay is, do we have, hours of operation ordinance? We have them now, this is, can we have an ordinance about the number or the clustering of various types of tobacco related businesses? I mean, if we're allowed cigars, I think we need to allow hookahs, but I think we can regulate the whole thing appropriately, can we?
That is something we need to research, but certainly look into and get back to.
So Mike, I think what I'm hearing is that we need to look at regulation on hookah and see if there's something we want to regulate on the tobacco side too, so that we understand what our options are. Probably seems like a fairly urgent given the number of applications we're receiving.
And so just to be clear, the one that is the actual service, right? The hookah service where you're is an establishment. The other one is the sale of tobacco products, the sale of vape shops. And I'm hearing the same concern on both, and that to find a way, options to further regulate due to the health and safety concerns. Okay.
I did have a talk with Jason Gatton's office to look into this for the next session.
Coming up, like a certain distance from schools at least. And they're asking me, what do you think that distance is? And I said, well, if you have a strip joint next to a church, how far is that? You know, let's use that as your guide. But it just perplexes me. I mean, they're popping up everywhere. It's a setup for failure. Hookah is, I know what a vape is. I know what's in it. It's oil. And it's air freshener, the same thing that's inside of a great air freshener. And that's what they're breathing in. Combine, and the illegal ones have the drug in it too. And it's the Delta 8,
They take one molecule out and then they call it Delta 1-320 or whatever it is. To make it it's legal. It's according to the Farm Bill that was passed on the federal level. So I had a long conversation with them. I said, let's kind of look into some distances from schools, from all the vape shops. So that's just an update.
Sure.
Yeah, I would like to tag the THC-based or hemp-based businesses onto this whole idea. I was at HEB this weekend, and there's a new place open. Well, my wife went in, she said it was a head shop. And there were signs all over the parking, all over the strip mall that said free THC. Well, I think it sounds like really brilliant marketing, if you ask me. But if we're going to look at substances that are not specifically controlled, then these types of substances would fall, I would think, would fall into that whole category.
Do you want to say, I believe that CBD locations are allowed to operate by state law. But we certainly look into it.
Lauren, Nicole, any questions y'all need that would be helpful to answer at this point, knowing the path forward of coming up with options that are more restrictive? Anything you think of at this point?
So we're gonna further look at regulating sales, because that's what the use, when you talk about from a zoning standpoint, because there's two components. There's the zoning land use regulatory, which is the use category of the sales. Are we wanting to restrict that? I'm gonna go down both paths to make sure we know. So
Are you saying retail sales and they also do whatever they want with it?
So
I'm specifically talking about the, I'm sorry.
it's okay, yeah, and yes, hookah or the vape or all of it, because the land use, because what we'll have to get direction on is the land use category right now is all encompassing. So that's how they're all lumped in together. So yes, it's a retail sales and they can take it home, but it does also allow them to smoke it inside those places, those retail establishments.
That's the portion I want to stay away.
Yeah. If there's somebody separate.
And Pete has Jennifer and a couple of others have mentioned just the retail sales of those. Because as a landlord, I know they like to pay big dollars to landlords to come in. And they're open 24/7 as well. Many of them are open 24/7. What happens at 3 in the morning is never good. Never good. So when the vape shops, I think I heard Jennifer say, just the retail sale of it in the city of Sugar Land should be limited or abandoned.
Okay.
And I'm giving them information here. And then as far as selling the retail, but I mean, we might want to see it all the same. Don't sell it in our city. We don't allow it. We don't allow the use of it within a facility. We don't allow the retail sale of it, of the vape and or the hookah. That's just the way I know. And then I know Stuart brought up a very important thing, but if we're talking about it, we're talking about all three, but I heard CBD is statewide. We see very few of those in the city of Sugar Land. I know 2 that I see off of 59, but
yeah, the CBD American Shaman, I think is the name. That's pretty popular.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Yeah, there's a California that's in the HES.
Yeah.
It's correct. A lot of the farm bill that was through the legislature recently did tack on a lot of that CBD was involved in that bill.
And where I see it is on private road. So that's part of that is Richmond, PTJ. So there's 2 of them on that side, and there's 2 of them on the other side by Terra, on the way to Road Ranch.
Right outside by the old inside of the territory, and ruin reads these things all the time. People are not happy at all.
Well, for you cigar smokers, I'm not sure how you're gonna separate cigars from whatever the
So thank you.
substance.
I was just about to go back to the way it's defined,
Yeah.
because that's what we'll have to address and bring forward in a development code amendment is the definition, because it is again.
Just break it out. Just break it out in separate categories, opposed to lumping it in.
Yes, and we'll work closely with legal on that, because there's interpretations of, well, you smoke tobacco out of all of these things, so how are you not selling tobacco? So we're gonna have to weave that
Understand?
web, yeah.
I want to reiterate what Suzanne mentioned earlier. These tobacco shops have been here for many, many years. And there's not, can I assume that people are not knocking on your door to apply for new tobacco shops?
We get some requests for e-cig and vape. I mean, sorry. They're not a lot. There's a few. Yeah.
You open up the door for the hookup, they're gonna be in every retail B2 zoning district, every shopping center, because the landlords are gonna wanna milk it. And the folks selling the hookup know how much they make in one night, which pays their rent for the entire month, one night. So they're making 29 days of profit based on one night. And it's not good for our image.
Well, and let me ask this question. If legally, we don't find a good way to separate them, I think there are legal challenges to be able to do that. Is the council concerned enough about it to just ban any of them, and then whatever cigar shops are here right now would be grandfathered? Like we did with smoking in bars to where citizens, but you know, if that's a concern, I would think that's probably the easier route to go, is to say they're not allowed, period, and grandfather.
Yes.
Maybe the quicker route as well, because that's the smoking ordinance, not the zoning, but I'll let y'all figure that out.
That's a good idea.
But there's support for that.
Can I reply to that? I absolutely am willing to say no hookah. I'm good with that, okay? But, I see these vape shops popping up as well. I'd love to say no to vape. Because, you know, it's beautiful about Sugarland, and we've done a real good job before me, okay? The city's done a really good job before me, establishing sort of that standard. We don't do adult entertainment, we don't do gambling, we don't do whatever, right? And I don't see the problem
Yes.
with saying, hey, no, don't use it, right? So I just want you to hear me say, absolutely, I'm with you. Do it.
So, Mayor, do you remember back in 2018 or 2019, there was a young man in high school that came here and he to council and he spoke about his concerns about e-cigs, and what did we take any action on that? I can't remember. Do you remember? Yeah, and he was very concerned about the e-cigs. He was extremely.
I've done a lot of research.
Yeah.
That was part of it. But
Yeah, and anybody research to see if we took any action on that? I just remember he was very articulate, very concerned about the e-cigs, and I don't know if council took action or not. I just can't remember.
I don't know the answer.
So we did amend the code of ordinances, the smoking ordinance in 2019 to address e-cigarettes and incorporate it to the smoking ordinance.
So it was allowed.
To add it to the regulations and restricting where it can be.
Okay, so
So it was incorporated into the smoking ordinance because previously it just spoke about cigars and cigarettes, and then we added e-cigs.
okay, there was added restrictions to it. Okay, so okay, good. That's what. Okay.
Any other questions that y'all would need?
Okay, so I think we've got some direction on, we'll need to do some legal research on threading that needle with the restrictions, or just open to prohibiting everything. We hear on that.
Yeah, well, I think the answer was, I don't think you need to do a lot of research.
Okay.
I think the direction was, to Mike's point, which is ban it all.
So our research will be looking at, dealing with non-conforming, grandfathering, all of that.
Truly, we don't get outside our legal.
Sure.
Legal.
Yeah.
We'll have to do some communication with
And
folks.
if we can't ban it, then we wanna know, can we do hours of operation, you know, we don't have to make our,
Government's really strict.
right, we don't wanna make it easy for them to come and take all of it, for, about 24-hour licenses.
But we do this on our website. I believe you mentioned that it's on our website, city website. These 4 different ways of doing it. Yeah.
What is the substance that is used in a hookah?
Tobacco. Flavored tobaccos.
It's like a big plant, right?
It's one
Hoses hooked up to it. And you're all sitting around and it's just,
Sounds like
I don't know.
Anything else, y'all?
Other substances to the hookah?
Yes,
Okay, so that's the difference in cigars.
You can what?
You can add other substances to the e-cigarettes, the vapes, the hookahs. Cigars, you can't really have an other substance, but you could, but you don't want it.
What I'm hearing is to treat them the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ronnie?
If we are making changes to the smoking ordinance, is there any concerns regarding the distance requirements that y'all want us to take a look at? Just want to make sure we're addressing it realistically.
Well,
Those sell cigarettes.
I think that works.
Increase.
Yeah, because this is about not selling it, but about people who do choose to buy cigarettes and smoke them outside or whatever.
How old?
Because
Let me ask you that. Is it 2007?
So the ordinance was adopted in 2007. We did have some minor amendments to address the Churchwell Plaza and then the plaza here in front of City Hall. And then in 19, we added to the definition reference to e-cigarettes. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as it has been since 2007. So
Regarding distance,
regarding distance, and then just as a reminder, a restaurant can sell, according to this ordinance, can sell tobacco products as long as it meets the distance requirements when the individual is utilizing actually smoking the tobacco product. That would only be if the use is still allowed in.
right,
Well. Yeah. Retail sales of that, so. We need to tweak some of the definitions in this ordinance because it references a revenue percentage in order to move into the next definition category. So as long as they don't earn a certain percentage of revenue from the tobacco products, they can.
good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 4, city council, city manager reports, for city council member reports. William, let's start with you.
I have no reports, Kevin.
Jennifer? Sean? Sure.
I still have a hangover from last time.
Sure.
Okay, I attended an MCCSA HOA meeting and Elaine at Crescent Lakes won one of the Neighborhood of the Year awards, thanks to the efforts of their neighborhood representative, who's been there. That's me, yes. So anyway, so with that, so it's excited about that. And then I attended Yappy Hour at next to Palm Springs Dog Park, and staff did a great job on that. And at one point, cars were lined up on both sides of the road, almost back to the circle. So it was very widely attended Thursday night. So it was a lot of fun. And I attended a veterans dinner at the Disabled American Veterans. I was going to do no report, but I think it's important I mentioned Cullinan Park, which is in my. Yes, you did. You did it so well. You sat next to me. Thank you. Stuart, Rashad, Carol, and I, and the mayor went to the Cullinan Park, and the mayor received the Nina Cullinan Award. Yeah. That is all.
Those are rats on alligators, but
Yeah, that's easy.
that's easy.
And we have next week, the retreat. Okay. Item number 5, close executive session, 5A. Close executive session is authorized by chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with 55107.2. Deliberation regarding real property, and item B. Close executive session is authorized by 551 Texas Government Code, section 551087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. At this time, we're going to recess into the council dining room. Thank you all. Turn off your mics, please.